See if this goes. Hi, everyone. This is looking a little bit different than what I expected, but we'll see. I'm Karry Summers from, no I'm not. I'm Karry Levine from Altitude Pole and Fitness. Summers is my old maiden name, and I use it for pole. I knew I was going to get up and start with the wrong name. But I own Altitude Pole and Fitness in New Zealand. We're mostly a pole dance studio. We also offer some aerial classes like aerial silks, aerial yoga, aerial hoop, kind of all the stuff you see in Cirque du Soleil, and anything a little bit alternative fitness. So we offer twerk it out classes, zoo fit, and contortion. So probably a little bit different than some of the people in this room. But this is my story, I guess, of the last 12 months and probably a little bit before that when I joined NPE. Okay, so this is basically my story of how I went from a software engineer to a pole dancer. And believe me, when I'm sitting on a plane and somebody asks me what I'm doing these days, it would be so much easier if I could just tell them I was a software engineer, because the minute you say you're a pole dancer, you get a different reaction. You kind of have to explain things a little bit more. So I've always loved being fit, but I've always hated going to a gym. I've hated conventional exercise my whole life. I actually failed my whole last year of school because of PE. It was actually a game of golf. I don't think that should count, but it did. But I found pole dancing when I was living in the UK, and I quickly fell into competing. I was a competitive gymnast growing up, so it was always kind of in my nature to compete at things. And it just became something so big for me, something I could do that got me fit, that got me strong, that got me flexible, and doing things that no one else could do, which has always been quite important to me too. And I just thought, this is amazing. I have to share this with everyone. So when we moved back to New Zealand, I decided to open my own space. And by space, I mean I rented a place by the hour and put up 4 poles. It was pretty small. I never really thought about doing this full time or giving up my day job. I didn't hate my day job. I kind of enjoyed it and it paid well. But I just needed to get this out there. And I had lots of old gymnast friends who I knew would be going through similar things to me and missing that kind of passion of being able to move in cool ways. So if I could just introduce this to a few people, then that's all I wanted to do. The thought of giving up my day job and doing this as my full-time job was a dream I never thought was possible. But obviously there were a lot of challenges, quite fast. In the beginning, time was my biggest issue. I had my full-time job still. I was competing internationally, which took a lot of training, and the studio was growing pretty quickly. So I was really big on things just happening by themselves. It was a hobby to me, it wasn't a business. And as things got bigger, I just kind of let them do their own thing. I think like Julie said, I was running the whole thing just kind of like a garage space. I mean, it kind of was at that point. It wasn't until we had the Christchurch earthquake that I had to make the call to move into a bigger space. We lost our hourly rented space, and I found a place that I could lease for myself, and I took that plunge and did it without thinking anything through. I didn't know what I didn't know. That was my big thing. I didn't know what I was doing, but I didn't know what I wasn't doing. It had just grown into this big thing, and I didn't really ever take the time to step back and figure it out and look at it as a business. I still had everything else going on. So I came up with a really good solution to this studio that wasn't making much money, and I opened a new studio on the other side of the country in Auckland. I have no idea what I was thinking. I think I just thought if I could just keep pushing and keep going, that eventually it would get there and be able to support me a little bit more and it would all be worthwhile. I knew all the other pole studio owners in New Zealand, and I knew that none of them were making good money. It was just kind of one of those things you did out of passion, out of love, and there was never going to be a way of making money from it. And I just got into this mindset of that's how it was. But you know, at least I was doing something I loved, right? When I had my first child, I decided to give up that job and do it full time. And by full time, I mean, you know, in between being a mother. I don't think I realised how much time that was going to take either. But I just got used to not being able to pay myself and just doing it for the love. And I'd still be putting all these hours in, but not getting anything back. And there was only just going to be so long that I could do that for, which is when NPE came into the picture. So it was actually one of my Auckland instructors tagging me on Facebook in an article about another pole dance studio in Ireland that made me think like this was actually an option. There was some hope. I was on holiday at the time, but I wasn't really off my laptop much, and I could feel my in-laws silently judging me, and I was definitely judging myself. I scoured that NPE website, read all the blogs, all the stories, like some of the people in this room, I read those stories, so much detail over and over again, and everything just rang so true with me. And it wasn't until that I was reading that stuff that I realised what an awful place I'd got myself into. I had this decent-sized business, I had no idea what I was doing, and I had no way out. And there was only so long I could do that for. I've just never been so hit with the truth as on that holiday. So I signed up with NPE, and I must admit, I kind of regretted it for the first few months and thought I'd made a big mistake. It was a whole new way of doing things, and not just for me, but for pole studios in general. It just wasn't how pole studios were run. And I knew that these guys worked with fitness gyms, so I kind of thought they were just trying to shove this fitness gym approach on me without actually taking the time to understand my business. But I knew nothing, and I was doing nothing right, and so I had no choice. I was still running the place as a hobby, and it had become a decent-sized business. We had a lot of members, we had a lot of success, we just didn't have a lot of money. First, the prices went up, obviously. Looking back now, that was the scariest thing I've done. Standing in front of my other instructors and telling them our new prices was horrible. And I had to kind of put across this trust to them like I knew what I was doing, and I really didn't. I had no idea, and I didn't know if it was going to work, and I had to prove to these people that were trusting me that it was going to work. The prices felt so expensive, but looking back now, we were just stupidly cheap before. Then we had the sales system, the good old auto closer. I'd like to say we had to redo our sales system, but we didn't even have one. At that point, people could just book in online themselves. They turned up, they didn't come back. I had no idea. I thought it was awesome because people could just do it themselves. But really, it meant that I had no control over anything. But we just kept on keeping on. We followed through all the steps. Tom would never let me give up at every step of the way. He was always questioning me and challenging me. I think I questioned and challenged back a little bit too. But everything just started to work. And each time we did something, the proof was there and the results started coming in. And so we just followed the dang instructions. So how did it go? It went pretty well. So I just kept working through the lessons. I used everything from NPE, from the margin calculators, the raise the rates template, and of course the auto closer technique. And everything just worked out. The raise the rates was fine. The new prices just became the norm. And we got rid of our old 5-packs and 10-packs, and we actually had members now. I could actually tell NPE how many members we had each month. I knew what a lead was finally, and I actually knew how to give them the numbers of how many leads we got in. The sales system actually worked. Every time somebody signed up on a 12-month contract with us, without ever even having touched a pole, I was amazed. And I think our instructors were too. I don't think they ever thought people would sign on to a contract without even trying pole first. It's just too different. But they did, because we had the systems in place. They trusted us. It mostly went well. It was me. I completely held back on things. Every step of the way, I would tweak things just enough that it wouldn't work quite right, or I would meddle with things just enough so we couldn't get full results. I just felt like NPE still weren't listening to me and my business and how unique it was. But what I started to realise, and looking back now, NPE have already done all the tweaking for you and all the trialling and erroring for you, and they kind of just know what they're doing. And it did work. I never had any reason to doubt them as I saw the results come in. It's probably taken me about 12 months to 100% be doing things the way that Tom's asked, proper consults, no trials, actual contracts with people, and the results have just kind of spoken for themselves. So where are we now? This is kind of 16 months on from joining NPE. We started off as a company that had 2 studios, one that was losing money consistently, and one that was probably making just enough to cover that one losing consistently. Both studios are now making a profit most of the time each month, and a decent profit. In fact, just one of those studios recently made a bigger net profit than both the studios ever did combined in a whole year before. The revenue is still going up each month, and I know exactly what I need to do to keep those numbers going up. I know my targets, I know my numbers, I know my goals, and I can do this. I know I can now, and I know how. I think most importantly for me, I'm not working in the business anymore. It was really important to me to get myself out, because in about 6 months' time, I'm having my second child, so I kind of knew that I had to be out of the business by then. If I'd have got pregnant 12 months ago, it would have probably meant either the end of my sanity or the end of my business. It would have been an awful thing. But now I'm in a place where I have an amazing team running the studio for me that I trust and that almost run it better than I ever did. And I could bugger off to Europe for a year and work over there, and the studios would still go. And that's definitely the biggest thing I've got out of this. It's bigger than I ever could have dreamed it could be. So the Christchurch studios just moved into a new location, a studio that's probably bigger than most studios in the world, definitely the biggest in New Zealand by far. In the first 8 months of NPE, we grew to the point of hitting capacity at that first location with 95 members. When we opened the new studio, which was about 3 or 4 months ago, we had 50 members pre-signed, ready to start. So I'd already covered my opening costs. In the 3 months since opening that new location, we're just about to hit 180 members. So I remember about a year ago, we hit 100 members at altitude of the studios combined. And that had been such a massive goal for me that I remember writing down and like 10xing it and thinking I'm probably not going to make that number. But about a year ago we did. And I remember putting this post up on Facebook. And this took ages to find. Searching on Facebook is a nightmare. But it kind of just shows that that was such a big deal for me, reaching that 100 members. So our member growth since then. So when we started with NPE 16 months ago, we probably started on about 50 members, and that was after we switched them over from those 10 packs and stuff. We ended up with about 50 members through the 2 studios combined. 12 months ago, we hit that 100 member mark. So that was already some pretty good growth that I was really, really proud of at the time. So 6 months ago, we hit about 160, which is pretty cool. Today, we're at a combined total of about 280, 285 members. So you can see what the last 12 months has done, being under NPE, and just starting to do things right. We didn't make any massive changes, we just made constant changes. Okay, we made quite a few massive changes, but it was nothing rocket science. So this is some photos of our new studio in Christchurch. We went from a space of around 100 square metres at our old location. We're now at a space of 425. So we've kind of like quadrupled in size physically. We have 3 studio rooms now, so we've got 2 pole spaces. We went from 12 poles at the old studio to 24 poles at this studio. So there's 12 in each room. We've also got a dedicated aerials and dance room, and contortion and twerking and whatever the people want to do in there. I don't know. We've got a dedicated waiting area, which is probably a first for a studio in New Zealand and has massively helped our culture. People just sleep there, mostly actually. But they hang out there. It's the place for them to really build that community. The whole place is branded in our colours and our new logo, and it's a space I never dreamed I'd ever have. Like, I've never seen a studio nicer than that across the world, and the fact that I own that just blows me away every time I walk in. So what's been the end result of all this? The biggest thing, my business is no longer a hobby. It's now run as a business. It doesn't drain my time and money, and it gives back to me and my lifestyle. I finally see myself as an entrepreneur, almost as a leader. I'm getting there. I'm really proud of everything I've achieved though, and everything I've become. And I trust that I can kind of do anything I want now. As long as I work hard and have that support around me, I know that anything's possible, which is a big mindset change from where I was a couple of years ago. I'm at the point now where I get to decide on the next step of my business and what that means, and I'm really excited about the different future possibilities. And I know that having my second kid is not going to hold me back from that. So me personally, so I've made this new philosophy in life. At the start of the year, I was reading this book, and it was talking all about how there's all these society's rules around you that, you know, you have to go to uni after work, after school, and you have to marry someone of the opposite sex, and all this stuff that is the norm of society. And basically, it's not true. You can make your own rules for life. So it got me thinking, and I decided that I didn't want to work 40 hours a week just because of this magic number 40 that society thinks we have to work. So I wanted to work 20 hours a week. And I wanted my husband to be able to work 20 hours a week too, because there's no point in him working all the time. I don't enjoy the kid as much when I'm by myself with him. That sounds way worse than it should. I enjoy my work, but I also enjoy sitting in the sun, having a cup of tea, going on lots of holidays, and just hanging out and being a bit lazy at home. So that's what I want from my life, and that kind of became my why that I set myself. And thanks to NPE, I'm almost there. Like, there's still a little bit more work to do, but because of this deadline on me now, my husband can drop down to part-time work in March, and we're both going to be able to enjoy our life and our work and our kids together. And my company supports that. It never would have had the money to allow my husband to drop down to part-time before. So that's really exciting for me personally. I'm in a completely different place than I ever thought was possible. So what's the point of all this? I guess the main point to me, and that I'd like people to take away from this, is that it's okay to not know what you're doing. I definitely didn't, but then why should I have? I didn't have a business degree. I came from not even a fitness background, a gymnastics background, I guess. I know pole dancing, but I don't know how to run a business. You might think you're doing awesome, but somehow you're just not getting the results you want to be. Or you might know that you have no idea what you're doing, but you don't know how to find out what you're doing. If you're here, then you obviously have the passion to succeed. You just need to combine that with the right blueprint, and you can kind of have whatever success you want. So this is some of the photos of my journey, just to finish off with a more visual thing. So in the top corner is my original studio with my very first instructor, just being done up. And moving off on the top right corner is the new studio and the new logo. And then our team down the bottom. There's this thing in pole dancing called Sunday Bum Day. So every Sunday, everyone's expected to do an Instagram tag, like a photo of their bum, and hashtag it Sunday Bum Day. So that was us trying to do a kind of tame version of that. And then we've got our student showcases. So we run these 3 or 4 times a year. And our last one that we ran had 150 spectators and 30 performers. So that was huge for us. And last year we won the New Zealand Studio of the Year at the New Zealand Pole Industry Awards. So it's just kind of shown this journey over the last 7 years of everything. So while I've got the opportunity, I'd like to say a massive thank you to NPE, to Sean Greeley for having the vision to help so many of us, to Rick for being the best salesperson ever and getting me on board, and to Tom, of course, for coaching me through some really tough decisions, believing in me and encouraging me every step of the way. There's a quote that we have a little bit at the studio that if you stumble, you just turn it into your choreography because nobody's going to know but you. And I think it's the same with business, right? We're allowed to make mistakes. Like we were told yesterday, failing should be okay and allowed in business because it's not until you fail that you can kind of figure out what you're doing wrong and fix it. And as long as you just make it part of the dance and just continue on, it'll all kind of work out. So thank you for listening to my story.
Thanks so much, Karry, for sharing that story. It's been an amazing honour to be part of your journey for the last 16 months, and it really comes down to you. Once you kind of got on board and followed those instructions, your execution was amazing. And I think having such a strong vision that you had, it allows you to kind of get through those hard points because you know what you're kind of aiming for. So, amazing story. This is just the start. When I first visited Karry, I was actually on holiday in Christchurch and thought I'll pop in and see Karry in her studio. And I tell you what, the one you've got now is just next level, and I know your customers love it, and it's just going to be huge. So, congratulations, and also congratulations on your second child as well.
Thanks.
So, another round of applause for Karry, please.